welcome to everybody who's just joining us. We have, okay, the recording is started, so we will get this going. All right, hello. And let's get the chat window open. So everybody who's just joining us, we want to start our meetings. We recognize that people are normally coming from or going to meetings. So we're going to start and end 5 minutes into the session, or into the hour. So we'll give people just another 4 minutes to trickle in here as we get going. So as you join, if you wouldn't mind just a quick introduction of yourself, just where you're from, and say hi to the group in the chat window. And we'll just get everybody else all connected. So I was just talking to Heidi about lessons she learned from the last area that she worked in and her takeaways. And she was sharing some really good thoughts on how to help people get past their complaints sometimes. Stephanie, I'll ask you a question while we're waiting for people to get going, if that's okay. I mean, I know most of this will be us talking to you and getting your input, but what is your favorite thing about working with teams?
Wow, what is my favorite thing about working with teams?
Sure.
My favorite thing about working with teams is what can be accomplished. I'm an accomplishment junkie, so I like to see the amazing things that can be built when the right people are brought together under the right conditions. And yeah.
That is awesome. That is a really, really good answer. I like it.
And I didn't even prepare for that one. Wow.
Yeah, just off the top of your head, you're good to go. It's so similar to, as I'm thinking about that, I would have to say potential, right? I love the idea of potential, but achievement junkie is fantastic. That's really, really good. It's all about empowering people to accomplish something. It's great.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm taking that one.
So again,
quote.
Ooh, very good. Thanks, Heidi.
At first I was going to say my favorite thing about teams is people, but then Heidi, who is also an introvert, would know that I'm lying. So I had to go with a more honest response. So.
Heidi, what about you? What's your favorite thing about teams or working with teams?
I guess my favorite thing about working with teams is learning. Every team comes with its own challenges, and every team, I definitely learn something. So that's actually my favorite part, because then I can take that and help the next team to move forward and hopefully do what I told you before, which was tell them the impact of what happens if you don't do it the way that we're suggesting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Very good. Let's see. Jeff says he's on mute. Are you really, Jeff? See if we can figure out why that is. Everybody who's just joining us, we're going to get started here in about 1 minute, provided we can get Jeff's audio working. Did you try putting in your pound attendee ID pound? That might be it. Oh. He says, of course I have. Oh,
I love how technology can bring us together, but at the same time, when it's not working right, it can be doubly frustrating.
Yes. It's amazing how. And I guess it comes from, I can see Jeff's video now. We see you, Jeff. We just can't hear you. Let's see. I'm sure we can figure out why. Let's get Jeff's mute. No, you're not muted. You. Maybe try recalling back in. So Jeff's gonna try to reconnect with us here. I'll go ahead and get our intro roll going as we go into the Panos link. Awesome. All right. I'll go ahead and get our audio roll going here as we get kicked off. So welcome to everybody who's joining us. We're just going to get some audio things figured out as we press forward. And Jeff, feel free to jump in and cut me off whenever you get there. But welcome to Coaching Agile Journeys. This is our 7th of these meetings that we've had. It's going to be an opportunity for us to dive in and hopefully learn some interesting content about Agile. I know for me, I'm excited about getting a refresher in some of the Agile practices and ways it can work in business. I'm looking for that extra encouragement today, personally. Our agenda, what we're going to do is first 5 minutes, give everybody 5 minutes to join the call. Also want to recommend the Q&A panel inside of WebEx. If you have any questions throughout the call, whether it's for one of the panelists or whether it's for the speaker, just submit them via that Q&A throughout the entire call. We'll take those and have some time to answer them at the end. Also, we are in this time right now, the 5 to 10 minutes we're in the kickoff. Quick glance of who and how many are with us, what the call is all about, and how it works. So looking at our attendees right now, we've got a group of 21 gathered so far, and that number is increasing. And the one we're hoping to get in here is Jeff rejoining us here pretty soon. We'll talk about the main topic here for about 40 minutes. That'll include a little bit of Q&A, and then we'll close out again 5 minutes to go to let you get to any next meetings that you have. So what is Coaching Agile Journeys all about? Well, it's a very small group of Agilists who are committed to living our Agile journey to the fullest and finding highly focused topics that help escalate development in each of our Agile coaching journeys. So we, of course, are following the pillars of Agile, and we want to find topics that Agile coaches tend to be routinely challenged with, and also find people here like Stephanie who are just Agile practitioners who have something they can share in their journey that can hopefully help and encourage us in our journeys together. So a couple of announcements. We value your engagement and feedback, and so our website that has been up now for one of these meetings is coachingagilejourneys.com. If you haven't connected with us there, you can join our email subscription so that you don't miss an invitation to one of these in the future. And that's also where we post out links and more information and ways to get in contact with us. Hopefully you've stumbled your way around WebEx before. If not, there's a chat panel you can use to chat directly to people. There's a Q&A panel for asking questions, and then we may even throw in some polling as the meeting goes forward. Just a couple of emails there. Coaching Agile is the email of this group, and then you've got Heidi, myself, and Jeff, who are going to be your hosts for today, along with Stephanie. All right, quick quote for you. We like to share a quick quote of the day before we get into it. I thought this was fascinating when I came across it. Could potentially lead to some interesting debate, but when to use iterative development, Martin Fowler says you should use iterative development only on projects that you want to succeed. I know I have been in that situation before. I felt that, why is this not working? And hopefully you're not finding yourself in that situation today. All right, so moving forward, we're still trying to get Jeff audio, which is kind of important because Jeff is going to interview Stephanie. Oh, victory! What timing, Jeff? Perfect.
Oh boy, that was fun.
That is very fun because I was about to hand it over to the sweet silence of nothing. But Jeff's going to interview Stephanie throughout her Agile journey. That means Heidi and I are going to be in the background. We're going to turn off our webcams, and we'll be monitoring the chat and Q&A panels. So if you have any questions or comments, Heidi and I will be back there doing that. And then be prepared for flash polls as we go forward. So that's our little spiel. We are right on time to hand this microphone off to Jeff. Or Heidi, do you have any thoughts before we kick it off to Jeff?
No, Jeff, take it away.
Awesome.
Oh, cool.
Here's Jeff.
All right. So being as though I came in late and I was having audio problems, where did they dive in, Stephanie? Did they let you do a little introduction?
No, not really, not yet.
Cool. Well, why don't you just give everybody a little intro about yourself?
Okay, sure. So I'm Stephanie Davis. My title at Valpak is Senior Director of Enterprise Agility. I'm responsible for basically all things Agile at Valpak, and I have 2 departments that report to me. I have what we call Agile Project Leaders, which are basically our ScrumMasters, our Kanban Leads, and our Agile Project Managers all rolled up into one title. And then we also have the IT Business Analyst team that reports to me as well. In addition to that, I do a lot of, I guess, community work, extracurricular. I'm on the board of the Agile Alliance and the Tampa Bay Technology Forum. And then I'm also one of the organizers for Tampa Bay Agile and Agile Open Florida.
You got your hands full there.
I seem to, yes.
I will say this, and first of all, thanks for joining us, and thanks for taking us up on this offer to chat with you.
Thanks for having me, and I hope everyone appreciates I got a screwdriver on one side and a light bulb on the other side. So think what you will of it, but that's my background.
That's cool. It's better background than I have. I turned on my camera at one point, but it was hard to see anything. The lighting's bad. Anyway, we'll kind of dive in a little bit, and I will say this, for those of you who don't know Stephanie, and I've never met her personally myself, but I was down at Agile Orlando, and I ran into a few of Stephanie's colleagues, and they had nothing but great things to say about Stephanie and what she's done at Valpak. And then, of course, Stephanie introduced me to her blog at www.iamagile.com. And interesting enough, I thought I'd bring this up too. So what's this Agile pregnancy all about?
Yeah, so I'm pregnant, and I'm actually 19 days or less away from my induction date, so I'm getting quite close here. So if I disappear off screen, I'm either having a cough attack because I'm getting over a cold, or I've gone into labor. So either way, I'm sure it will make for a memorable event. But as I started out on my pregnancy journey, I really realized that the reason it takes 9 months to have a baby is because it really takes 9 months to prepare for the baby to come. And so I need a way to sort of organize all of that to-do list, so to speak. And so I actually established a Trello board with each of the, trimesters, first, second, and third, and then sort of a postnatal period. And I've used that from the beginning to organize all of the different things I basically need to do to get ready for the baby to be here. So, and I'm happy to say that I am right on track and feel very well prepared.
That's so awesome. I guess, did you ever hear the saying that, when they talk about crashing resources and traditional project management, I guess it's not that thing where you could have 9 women and have the baby in 1 month. You know?
Yeah, you can. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hopefully knowing I'm pregnant will explain if I get sort of baby brain at some point and kind of, come up with fuzzy answers. It's because, or I'm out of breath too, because I have very limited lung capacity right now, so I may run out of breath as well. We'll see.
I've been through it. I have 2, and the wife, I was right there by her side, and I know all those motions. You have a fun road ahead. With that being said, is there anything else that you use Agile for in your personal life?
Yeah, actually I have a home improvement Kanban board, and for a long time nothing moved on that thing. It was all stuck in the backlog, but recently we've been moving stuff through the home improvement Kanban board as we're kind of preparing for baby. We're making some home improvements as well.
Eventually you'll use it for chore boards for your kids.
Yes, I'm sure I will.
Yeah, we've turned it into a Kanban chore board, and we let the kids pick out the chores that they want. They have a point value on the Kanban board, and the points translate into allowance dollars. And then we have an inspection column. And when they get it to that inspection column, we go, okay, now let's go check the quality of your work before we just hand over money. And they love it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of using Agile with your family, so I will definitely be doing that.
Cool. Okay. Well, now we'll talk about Valpak a little bit. Do you want to enlighten the audience a little bit on Valpak and Cox Target Media Company in case they haven't been exposed to the brand?
Sure. So Valpak are basically responsible for the blue envelope of coupons that many folks receive in the mail, and we have many franchises across Florida, so I'm sure that you guys have seen them before. And then we also have digital coupons online. And then part of Valpak is savings.com, which is more of affiliate coupons, so you can go to savings.com and actually purchase things from online retailers as well using online coupons. Cox Target Media doesn't really come into play because they sold us at the end of last year, so we are no longer part of the overall Cox Enterprises family. We are actually just a new entity called Valpak Holdings, so don't have anything to say about them.
Yeah, okay, cool. That's news as well. All right, so we'll jump back into like pre-Valpak, and they set out, and you're looking for a company, they're recruiting. You start interviewing with Valpak, you come in and you arrive. Can you kind of set the tone for what you walked into when you first started there?
Yeah, so I started here in December 2004, I think was the date, and I came from, I worked for AT&T as a project manager and actually worked for IBM originally. The division of IBM got sold to AT&T, so I kind of went with the sale. And I was just a project manager at the time, just looking for another project management position, and so I was hired in as a project manager at Valpak. So I've been here 12 years now. At the time, Valpak was your typical dysfunctional waterfall company, where we do these long death march projects that would last 6 to 9 months, and we wouldn't get it right, and so we'd spend 3 months cleaning up support problems, as well as just trying to actually meet the true needs of the customer or the stakeholders. So it was your traditional project management world.
Yeah. So you ended up becoming the champion of this Agile transformation. At least that's what one of your colleagues told me down at Agile Orlando, and we were in close contact because you had actually popped in on one of the sessions, and you kind of downplayed it and went, well, no, it was a team thing, and we all did it together. So what basically put you in that champion role within your organization, and how did you start to move in that Agile transformation direction?
Right. We actually went full-fledged Agile back in 2011. And prior to that, I'd say a few years prior to that, maybe 2008, some of us were looking for a better way, and so we went off and got our certified ScrumMaster certifications and knew, just enough to be dangerous, and so we brought that back and applied that at Valpak to some of the projects, but with limited success because, we're trying to do like 4-week sprints with 2 weeks of requirements gathering in between, and like once a week stand-ups and teams of 40 people that are also assigned to other waterfall projects. So we were basically bastardizing what was, Agile or Scrum at the time. And we spent, as a management team, I was Director of Project Management at the time, we spent as a management team about a year writing or contributing to like a 100-page document on our process. It was called the Application Lifecycle Management Process document. We even had a technical writer assigned to help us with this and everything. And I think we all just got fed up and decided, you know what, this is too much process, we need to lean out. And that's when we decided to actually bring in an Agile coach, an external Agile coach, and I know you have a question later to talk about that, so I won't spend too much time on that, but we brought in an external Agile coach to help us to evaluate our situation, and we knew we were broken, and that, actually fully committing to Agile, which, had many successes, by the time 2011 rolled around, was really the right thing to do. So we actually started our first sprint in October 2011. With 6 IT teams at the time, and since then we've pretty much scaled out to various departments across the organization, non-IT departments, and we've scaled up to our executives, which was certainly a big feat, and I think one of the things I'm proudest of here at Valpak is just the way that we've gotten the executives to really walk the talk. I'm not sure if I answered that entirely, but that's sort of some of it. How did I end up? I know you asked how did I end up as sort of the champion and everything. Well, yeah. I was the most experienced from a project management perspective. I was Director of Project Management, so it was sort of a natural transition for me to fall into sort of the Agile realm of things. But as I did that, I sort of established a personal rule that I don't want to do a process that you can't Google. So, and that's what I tell everyone when they say, you know, hey, where do you have your process written down at? Well, Google it. You know, Google Scrum, Google Kanban, that's what we're doing, you know. So we threw out that, you know, 100-page document and burnt it, actually, and have never looked, you know, haven't looked back at it ever since. So, and then, you know, it wasn't just me. It was, you know, a good group of IT leaders at the time that helped to drive this and support this and hold this up and evangelize it. And then I also had a great partner, you know, on the executive team, and that was my boss, Chris Cate. He's the CIO, and you know, he's really been the champion at that executive level to get them on board, keep them on board too.
Yeah, how valuable would you say that having that champion at the executive level was to your transformation?
It's absolutely critical. You know, when I talk to people and I hear about failed Agile transformations, one of the common themes I hear is having you know, they have this bottom-up momentum, but they don't have top-down support. And back in 2011, it was a really interesting timing for us because we had, at the time, just got a new president, and he was really into servant leadership. And, you know, for those of you that are familiar with it, servant leadership and Agile really do go hand in hand. And so it was sort of this perfect storm back in 2011 where we had this enough bottom-up momentum from, you know, interest from the teams and wanting to work a better way, and enough top-down support and interest to you know, create, like I said, this perfect storm for us to really truly transform.
Yeah, you know, I've been through one of those transformations myself, and I completely concur. As a matter of fact, I remember just entering into it. That wasn't what I signed up for, actually. I went in just to do really cool project management stuff, and I was kind of like, through the interview, my very last step, I had the SVP look at me and say, you're not here just to follow people's leads. You're here to pave a brand new path for the way we do things, and you have unprecedented air support. And I knew right then and there, with air support like that behind my back, that I could go and start working with everyone at the grassroots level, getting that grassroots movement going, and that if I got blocked politically, it wasn't going to be hard to get unblocked, that we could actually get the funds, do what we need to do, and make that process successful.
Yeah,
even the culture completely. I liken it to this way. The first day that I walked in on that job, I hate to put it this way, it was like a morgue or a library. It was quiet. There was such silos. It was warlike. And at the time that I left there, it was fun. The teams were fun. It wasn't quiet anymore. We knew what we were capable of getting done, and the teams had so much more confidence than what I've ever seen them have. Yeah,
and you know, from that executive champion, I think it's not enough for them to just say, hey, we support you, go off and do this, because it's about them too. And so it's important for them to say, what can we do? How can we be more agile? How are we part of this transformation? And not just, oh, sure, you guys want to go do Agile, that's cool, go do it, you know, whatever that thing is, yeah.
So speaking of which, you said your executives are on fire with this. They love it. What are some things that they're doing that resonate, you know, around your company, and to even people that are just developers when they look at the executives and go, wow, this culture really is Agile?
Right. We actually have, I have a pretty good blog article on my blog, IamAgile.com, about exactly how we have our executives walking the talk, and so there's more detail there. But basically, we started off by being inspired by the portfolio Kanban level of the Scaled Agile framework, SAFe. And we started there, so we got them, you know, using an executive level Kanban board to organize and plan all the epics across the company. And it was a rough start. their first few stand-ups, they sat down and talked through an hour of material, you know, so it took a while, and it actually took it took some of those executives leaving the company to really make it work, and now we have a really strong executive team that really does embrace Agile as their own process. So we, in a very central area of our building, you know, it's actually in what we call the downtown kitchen, is a huge portfolio Kanban board, and it has 77 epics on there. I happen to know the number because we just went through our quarterly replan of the board, but it's got 77 epics on there, and they use a quarterly burn down, and they you know, have stand-ups every Monday in front of the board. In fact, they are probably the best example of a stand-up in the company in terms of discipline. It's always 15 minutes or less. They speak to each of their cards, movement forward, movement backwards, and any impediments, and that's it. They do a great job.
I didn't really have this as a question, but I'm just kind of retrospective because I kind of read into this a little bit. So I'm assuming that you kind of helped this executive team get going with this Epics Kanban board. Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, think of me as their facilitator or their Kanban lead or their ScrumMaster, whatever you want to call it. So, and I help them maintain it, right? You know, I mean, yeah, they aren't there, you know, writing their own cards or printing them or cutting them out. All that stuff, you know, is stuff me or my team picks up. But they are fully engaged on what their epics are, what the value is those epics are trying to deliver, and exactly where the teams are that support those epics are in the process.
Yeah, that kind of leads me to my next line of thinking, and I think about this too because we really asked how important it is to have an executive level sponsor, but I also think about this. I think it's very important for, and this is for anybody out there that's probably listening that's trying to make this Agile transformation and they are an executive, but how important is it for that executive sponsor to have the right person and have trust in someone like you or trust in someone like me or Heidi and say, you know what, I think I got the right person for the job, let's do this.
Sorry, I had to cough.
No, that's fine. You already gave us a disclaimer.
I think you were, yeah, this is true. I think you were asking about how important is it for the executive champion to have somebody?
Yeah,
right.
Like so your executive sponsor, your executive champion, for them to confide in you and give you the latitude to do your job, you know, that trust coming and reciprocation back to you.
Oh, that trust is absolutely important, and you know, I've been working for the same person here for 12 years, all 12 years, and so, like I said, he was the executive champion of Agile, and I continue to work for him, and so I have a very long-running relationship with him where I'm able to speak very openly and honestly, and you know, we have a very good relationship in that regard.
Cool. So at Valpak today, if you were to put some sort of a heat gauge meter on your Agile culture and what just generally the employees think about it, their happiness, their attitudes, their emotions, could you kind of enlighten us on how that translates across the board?
Yeah, well, heat meter is hot, of course.
Yeah.
So we did a survey about 2 years into our Agile transformation. So this would have been a few years ago, but we did a survey of the product owners and the stakeholders and the team members as well. And I like to say that we had like about a 95% approval rating, you know? And so what that meant is that people did not want to go back to the way it used to be. And that's very satisfying, that sort of thing. I mean, it really says that people have embraced it and the culture that comes with it. So I think we're doing well. It's interesting because you start off with a transformation, but it doesn't end there. From a transformation, you get into your journey, and you know, your journey never ends, right? And so we're all on this journey together, and you know, I think the overall mood of the organization is very positive, very agile, so to speak. But individually, teams may sort of ebb and flow based on their level of function or dysfunction, or how, if they're high performing or low performing or whatever. So that may sort of change at an individual level or based on what they're working on, right? I mean, for instance, I know one of our teams right now isn't too happy because they're doing a lot of SEO work, which is very grunt work to them. So they want to get back into the innovation stuff. So I think it really depends on a lot of factors when you look at sort of that mood from the team level. But overall, we are we have drastically improved our morale from the old days prior to 2011 when we were doing death marches and everyone was, you know, working their butts off.
Yeah, I know one company. I used to live in South Florida, and one company that was known pretty much for their agile maturity and having a really cool culture was Ultimate Software. And I think I was at the Agile Transformation Summit down in South Florida that they had a couple years back, and they had one of their product people speaking about their agile transformation, and people were, you know, basically talking about how mature they are. And I remember this guy saying, yeah, but it's so funny. When you're climbing that mountain and you think you've reached a peak, you kind of stop, look around, evaluate, and then look up and realize you got another 10 more feet to climb. He said, if you're doing agile right and you're being agile, you're always finding things that you can improve on and always opening up new doors. And I got to see a few of their Scrum Masters and developers and talk to them, and they were always finding new ways to chart out data or evaluate or analyze something so that they could improve and get better. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's a huge inspect and adapt cycle, and I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why I personally appreciate we give Agile tours, and I love them because the questions that are asked just remind us of how far we've come, but also, you know, make us realize how far we have yet to go. So it's very satisfying that way.
That is so cool, man. I kind of just got chilled because you read my mind for a minute there, like a Jedi mind trick or something. But I was actually, because the audience, I was going to bring that up, this Agile Tours thing. Yes, Stephanie said Agile Tours. If you go down to Valpak, they give Agile Tours. I learned that at Agile Orlando. I'm not sure. I think maybe it was one of your product people that said, yeah, come down. We give Agile Tours at Valpak. So that's kind of cool. How do one of those Agile Tours go? How do you schedule something like that? Or
Yep. So we have a monthly recurring Agile tour on the Tampa Bay Agile calendar. So, you know, just for sort of miscellaneous groups of people that are interested to see what we do here. And then we also give private tours for 10 or less people from any given company. We've had, in the past 2 years, over 50 companies come through here for an Agile tour. So it's one of the very busy parts of my job. We actually have 4 different stops on the tour, and you know, one of them is that portfolio Kanban. Another is the IT area where you'll see, you know, the IT teams, mostly Scrum boards, and then we have a stop in marketing and a stop in digital, so you can kind of see how non-IT teams embrace Agile as well. And it lasts about an hour. If you're interested in a private tour, certainly reach out to me, contact me, and you know, we're trying to assume a little more of a sustainable pace this year when it comes to tours, because some of the weeks last year I booked like 3 in 1 week, and it can really take its toll on you. Yeah, it is something that we do to give back to the community. Community is very important to not just me, but to Valpak as well, and I always like to, you know, people come in and they see all these, there's a lot to see, obviously. We maintain physical boards, even though we do have a tool. We use Target Process for our Scrum and our Kanban tool. Even though we have a tool, I always tell people, you know, when they ask, you know, why don't you just keep this in the tool? Well, if I just had a tool, I would not have an Agile tour, because no one wants to come in to look at your tool. You can show them that online, right? So this gives people the opportunity to not only see, you know, physical boards and sort of hear the Valpak story, but to also see our Agile workspaces. And like there's an art wall behind me, but we have an art wall in IT that is basically a tribute to the Agile Manifesto. It has all the 12 principles of the Agile Manifesto on it, and we explain how we believe in keeping the Agile Manifesto and those values and principles top of mind is what it truly means to be an Agile culture, and not necessarily whether you pick Scrum or Kanban or ScrumBon, or whether you spent 2 hours in your planning session or 1 hour. It's so much more than that. It is really that culture and that mindset.
Cool. So you went through a huge transformation, going through from a traditional waterfall process, that death march, into where you're at today. If you were to isolate, and I know you went through many problems, but if you were to isolate one problem or challenge that was probably your biggest hurdle to get over in making that huge conversion and that huge leap, what would you say it is, or was?
It really is, well, I mean, change management in general. People are stuck in their ways, and they've been doing traditional project management or waterfall their whole career, and we have very tenured people here at Valpak. I mean, I have 2 women on my team. One is been here 30 years and one's been here 35 years. So it does take unlearning sort of a lifetime or a career full of these sort of bad practices, and so change management is really the greatest challenge in that regard, I think, and just getting people to, in their own time, on their own journey, start to embrace Agile, start to, they say, to do Agile in order to be Agile, and that's really how it ends up working out. And eventually, people catch on, and it's just, you have to give them time and not take a push approach, but rather a pull approach. And that's really one of the ways that we ended up scaling, is that, IT took 6 teams, it's now, I think, 8 teams in IT, and we demonstrated how fun it could be, how much value could be produced, just that it was a better way of working, and the other departments in the organization, got interested, and they'd come to us and say, well, how can we be Agile? How can we do Agile? And, can you show us something? And the executives too, the executives, we want to be Agile too. How can we do that? So it's a lot of patience for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, geez, we're 5.5 years into it now, so
yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight at all.
Cool. I'll ask a couple more questions, and then I'll start taking some questions from the listeners out there. But one question I have, and I think of it this way, is not every company is a Valpak. Let me rephrase that. Most companies aren't a Valpak. Generally, if I talk to 9 Agilists, they are challenged beyond belief. They're just not garnishing the organizational support they need, or they're stuck in the mud, or they're only doing Agile within their team and they have an enterprise issue, but the company really claims to be Agile. Is there any type of advice you would offer other Agilists, such as myself or anybody else listening, that if we're trying to evangelize and be a change agent and make the world a better Agile place, but we're kind of stuck, is there any advice that you would give on how to make that resonate?
Yeah, I truly believe there's power in numbers, and that's why community involvement is so important. If you're just, if you're the developer at the bottom of the totem pole, you can influence change. You just have to find that right network of people that can help you. And like I said, one of the when we do Agile tours and we bring these groups in, we tell them, this isn't the way you're going to implement Agile. This is just how we do it, and we want you to be inspired by it. And believe it or not, those that are inspired the most are when people bring their executives in. So really, whenever I give a private tour, I always say, hey, get your executives, bring them in, kicking and screaming if you have to, and because they will be inspired, they will be enlightened, and that little bit of influence goes a long way for sure.
Yeah, it's a good best practice. And then my last question, and it comes full circle. We're coaching Agile journeys, and, you know, what inspired us to even launch this was through a class that Isaac and I took together with Lisa Atkins, an amazing coach. I ended up in a coaching session here with one of my HR folks. Earlier last week? It was last week. And I just think of other amazing coaches, and you even mentioned yourself when you started this transformation that you brought in an outside Agile coach. So how important is Agile coaching? Where do you see the role of Agile coaching in your organization? And what kind of coaching do you use to improve performance at Valpak?
Okay, so first of all, I'm a big Lisa Atkins fan. Her Coaching Agile Teams book is actually one of my favorite books. I've had all my people read it, and it's one of 3 books I keep on my bookshelf, so it really is very meaningful to me.
What are the other 2?
The other 2 are the book that has the Valpak case study in it, which is, it goes by 2 different names, but it was Charles Cobb actually wrote that book, and then the EQ difference.
Oh, cool.
So I'm big on this whole thing about EQ, and so EQ difference is so that was kind of life-changing for me too. So
sorry, I had to ask. I couldn't leave that on the table. I bet everybody would have been wonder what her other 2 books were.
Yeah, no problem. As far as, you know, bringing in coaches is concerned, I'm a huge advocate for it. This transformation wouldn't have happened had we not brought in an Agile coach at the time, and we brought in Agile Thought. Agile Thought is, you know, a Tampa Bay software development company, but they also have an Agile coaching practice. I think they're also out of Orlando as well. And at the time, we were probably their only Agile transformation client, so to speak, and they probably had maybe 1 coach at the time, which was their CTO, who's their CTO, and their 1 Agile coach. Now they've built up to a pretty, they've collected a great number of Agile coaches, so they have a very, very large Agile coaching practice now, and they work with a lot of other companies in the Tampa Bay area. But when they came in, like I said, it was Ryan Durrell at the time, and he had such a good bedside manner that he knew how to talk to people at all levels of the organization, from the developer all the way up to the executive. And so having that independent third party was absolutely critical. I could go to as many classes as I wanted and get as many certifications as I wanted and bring them back, but it's the whole thing about how, you know, you'll take advice from a stranger but not from a member of your family.
Yeah.
You know, the same thing holds in the corporate world. We hire people and pay them a bunch of money, and then we don't want to listen to them. We want to listen to consultants. And but if that's the way of the world, so be it. And that's what actually, you know, helped us to actually get our transformation going and actually make it stick. So I'm a huge advocate for coaching.
Awesome. Cool. I'm gonna kind of lean on Isaac and Heidi, who've probably been monitoring any questions that came in. See if we have any questions.
We do. We've got a couple of good ones for you, and one of them actually is a great segue right out of what you were just talking about, and it was on your executive sponsorship. So as you were looking to get this executive sponsorship, you had the coach involved. Can you maybe dive into what was the thing, if you could, I mean, I know it was a process, but what was the thing that got them on board? And then when you communicated out that mandate to go Agile, how was it received, and how was that initial, once you got the green light, let's do it, how did that kind of roll out a little bit?
Well, actually, like I said, our executive champion was my boss at the time. He was the CIO, so he was sort of involved in this whole, you know, dysfunctional effort to write this 100-page document to actually express our process because we didn't know what the hell we were doing. And so he felt the pain. He knew there was a lot of angst amongst his IT leadership team, and he very courageously, in my opinion, you know, asked for help in terms of bringing in an Agile coach to help us along, but also in making the decision that, you know what, this Agile thing, it is proven all over the world. It's used by companies of all kinds in many different industries. We have, you know, many companies want to say that they're different and they don't quite fit, you know, they're not like a Google and this won't work in their industry, but it's so not true. You know, we just talked about earlier about how it can be applied to kids' chores. Of course it can be applied to any company. And so he was very courageous in saying, you know what, we're not going to, we're not just going to, you know, dabble in this or pilot this. In fact, I think it was Eric Paul Workham who once told me that you can't pilot a culture, and it's so true. I truly believe in that, because all of our pilots failed. They would have been considered failures. It was when we decided to go full-fledged Agile that it truly took off and the transformation really took shape. And our Ryan Durrell used to always like to tell us that we didn't half-ass our transformation, we whole-assed it. So, and I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that.
Nice.
You know, it's funny. I actually had a different level of success back where I was at in a different way. I was asked by our executive sponsor, what do I need to do to give you support to make this happen? And I said, man, just give me a small petri dish to work with, just like a science experiment. Give me a comprehensive team, a complete team that could work, and give me a operations counterpoint, you know, point of contact that's completely committed to this team, and let us do our thing. And we built this small team, and it was like a SEAL Team 6 of Scrum teams, and we were doing so good. They enjoyed it so much. We were so organized. It was like a routine. People loved working on this team, and other teams started going, we want what they have. We want what they have. So then he goes, hey, can you take this mold to another team? And before you know it, they wanted to call the team pods. I go, call them whatever you want. We're building these little pods. And then it was our shared resource group. They had our database guys. They had the biggest problem with their work. And I said, hey, let's take it there as well. Only we'll do Kanban there. And before you know it, we had high visibility into everything we were doing. And a lot of our manual boards end up on the outside of these clear glass walls where it was the executives' walls. So even the executives always had high visibility into what we were doing. But that's kind of cool to hear how you guys went whole-assed. I love that.
And Isaac, I think that the question also mentioned something about mandating it. I haven't ever really, you know, thought of it that way, but I guess you could say those first 6 teams, they were told, hey, we're going to do this thing. They weren't told by me, they were told by our CIO, and you know, we always looked at it not as a mandate, but using the let's try it out approach. And so you can't underestimate the power. And we use this today at all levels in our retrospectives, right? You can't underestimate the power of saying, but let's just try it. It can't hurt to try it. It can't hurt to try it a sprint or two. And, you know, I have a little bit of a story related to that, because when the team started sprinting, you know, we started out with 2-week sprints, and you know, of course, our coach wanted to, like, you got to work into 1-week sprints. Well, we weren't ready for that, right? But the teams came to their leaders and said, well, can we do 3-week sprints? We really want to do 3-week sprints. This isn't working out with 2-week sprints, blah, 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 blah. At the time, again, you know, the CIO, again, very courageous, said, you know what, let's try 2-week sprints for 6 months. Give it a try. If it doesn't work out, we'll talk about it again. Guess what? No one ever raised the question again about moving to 3-week sprints. And now, to this day, we occasionally have a 3-week sprint for holiday periods. Like, you know, we don't want to be releasing over Thanksgiving and stuff, so we'll have a 3-week sprint. It totally throws people off. They hate 3-week sprints now because they spend the whole first week thinking they have an extra week, and then they end up sort of, you know, trying to get all this work done in the last 2 weeks, and there's always a holiday or something in the middle of it. So it's just interesting.
Yeah. And so a follow-on to that, Stephanie, and we got a little bit of clarification on the question, too, that I thought was really good. So you get this idea, you know where you're going, and you've got the executive sponsorship. So how do you get the business partners or the people who maybe are not directly influenced, or was everyone completely influenced by, this is what we as a company are doing? And then for you guys, was it a big bang, we are stopping waterfall, don't do any more waterfall things, or was it a transition, you know, a gradual transition as it rolled out? How did that really does that make sense? I guess, am I communicating the question clearly?
Well, first of all, when we set out to turn those 6 teams at the time to Agile teams, we messaged it and did a lot of PR and training to all levels of the organization. So we, you know, of course you train the teams and you train the product owners and you train the Scrum Masters, but we also had, an executive training session, and we had a stakeholder training session. And that's just so that they could, it was 30 minutes or less, and it was for people from all parts of the organization that weren't necessarily going to be touched by this whole Agile thing yet, but it allowed them to understand what the language would be. Here's what it means if you hear, what a sprint is, or here's what Scrum is really all about, or here's what Kanban is about. And that helped to sort of, promote it just from the start. And then over time, the IT teams did a great job at demonstrating success right away, right? I mean, it's kind of easy. You come from a world where you've delivered in 6 to 9 months something that wasn't exactly what your stakeholders wanted, to all of a sudden delivering a small increment of work that they really do want in 2 weeks or less. So right away they're like, wow, this 2-week thing, this is awesome, right? And so that's when other stakeholders got interested and really wanted to find out how they could be Agile and how they could be more a part of that world. Was there a second part to that question? What was the second part?
There was. It was in the rollout, the big bang or slow transition.
Got it.
And also, to tie to that, I can get 2 with 1 stone here. Not only big bang or slow transition, how do you know which one's right? When you as a Scrum Master need to push really hard, or when you maybe back off a little bit and say, we'll do this gradually? Could you talk to that briefly?
Right. For our size organization, I totally support the whole big bang thing. We've had, ever since back then, an IT staff of maybe between 85 and 100 people as part of IT. For larger organizations that have IT staff in the thousands, that's going to be a lot harder to do big bang. To say to everyone, Monday when you walk in, you're on sprint 1. That's a lot. So it just really depends on whether I agree with big bang or not. It happened to work for us. And, I mentioned earlier that, we spent some time in the years leading up to 2011 just dabbling in Agile, and not very successfully. It was, like I said, if we called it a pilot, they would have been considered failed pilots. So, I mean, you really have to kind of look at that as well. Is it better to just pull the Band-Aid off quickly, or is there some reason that you need to take it slow and gradual and be more deliberate?
Excellent. That's a great answer.
I was going to say, if we have more questions, because we're kind of running out of time, we do have a website, coachingagilejourneys.com, and we could probably, if you're open to that, Stephanie, do like a recap with you, and if we have more questions, you can answer them, and we could put them up on the site, and we'll put a link to your blog up there as well. And we also got a recap with our friend Colleen from last time. We still got to touch base with her. And then we can put recaps of both sessions up on our site.
Great. Yep. And so if you have questions, like I said, 19 days or less. So get your questions in soon. Yes. They may not get answered for a while.
Well, awesome. Well, Stephanie, on behalf of all of us and the listeners, I just want to say a big thank you for coming and sharing your journey with us and encouraging us with your experiences and what you've had. And again, we want to give everybody 5 minutes to get to the next meeting. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up now, but with a big thank you, and we hope to see everybody February 21st is going to be our next meeting. That'll be online on the website. You can register there. So thank you very much, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.